Hey, the reason I'm rushing out this review is that I just checked the Massdrop, and this item has only about half a day or so to go on it. So in case you do see this review and want one now, now's the time. So anyway, on with the show. Hello, this is the other Massdrop Ferrum forged knife that I'll be reviewing. Thank you very much to WIA Customs on Instagram. A guy called Wade in Australia just said, hey, I've got the Ferrum forged knives if you want to have a play with them. And I was like, yes, because these are not easy to get. You have to get these from Massdrop, which is a strange sort of online marketplace where you have to, the more things sell, the lower the price goes. And so it's a bit like Kickstarter in that if you get lots and lots of pledges, the project is successful. Yeah, it's interesting way of doing business. This is made by We Knives for Massdrop and Ferrum Forge. Ferrum Forge is a, they do make things as well, but I think this is just one of their designs. And this is a very nice little knife too. Very similar to the Crux, S35 VN steel, titanium frame locking handle, full titanium, titanium backspacer, the same pocket clip as the Crux, which I also have here. But yeah, let's take this one down to the table. And this is definitely the more sort of pure EDC design from the company. So I've done some testing on it. I've done some use of it. I'll let you know what I think. Let's get to it. Alrighty, so this is the knife. Let's look at it at tabletop. So you can see it's a little bit of a, it looks like a little, there's a couple of wee knives that look just a little tiny bit like this as well. And I'll flash that up on the screen now if I can find it. This is quite a small knife. Let's put it next to an Opinel number 8. First of all, you might all know what a number 8 is like in terms of its size and whatnot. So you see it's a little bit smaller than the Opinel number 8. Let's put it next to another Falcon that I have, the Alma Ultralight Falcon. It's even a little smaller than that, so it's not a big knife at all, which is really, really nice to have these high-end production companies finally making small knives. Often the high-end places kind of have so much, we want to do so many things with our knives that we need more blade and more handle to do them on. So it's not the case with this one. Really, really nice to have a small knife. Let's look at it next to the Spyderco Spidey Chef. This might be my favourite knife. There we go. And this is it next to the Spyderco Sage. It's another frame-locking titanium knife. Here we are. And let's look at it next to the Kaiser T1, which is another very sort of nice premium sort of titanium frame-lock clipper. And then just for size comparison in full, this is the Spyderco Police 4. Which is a very large knife. Now, of course, would be remiss if I did not bring in the other Massdrop Ferrum Forge knife that it's doing the rounds at the minute, the Crux. Here we go. So it is about an inch or so smaller than the Crux, which in itself is not a huge knife either. So there you go. So what do I like about this knife? Well, it's got a very nice design. It's a cool looking blade, I think. It's got sort of a bit of extra detail and feature, especially when you compare it to the Crux, which they're sort of going super neutral on. It is a cool looking little knife, I think. Completely subjective, of course. You might think this is hideous. Some people really don't like the holes in the blade for no reason. I generally don't, but I don't mind it on this one. I think it actually serves some kind of function in giving that little bit of thumb ramp there to go off of. It's kind of nice. It's not too bad. They do get, you know, accumulations in them, of course, but that's fine. So overall, I think it's a cool looking little knife. On a more basic level, the materials are really, really good. So S35 VN and titanium, no worries at all. Bearings as the flippers, as the system there. Yeah, no problems at all with any of the materials, especially for the price. These, when the drop was going well, they're not too badly priced. They're sort of around the 160 range, I reckon. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll correct myself if I'm wrong as well. There's just, the thing about Massdrop is you can't really see much about how things sell for because each drop is unique. But yeah, not a crazy expensive knife, especially considering that some of the Wii knives will go for mid $200s to $300 US sometimes. So there you go. I like the tall, slicey blade. It does actually perform pretty well. It's got a nice sort of high, saberish grind there. Still flat, so you know, not hollow, so it's not going to be a crazy slicer on like food and stuff or on cardboard. But flat grind, especially with a bit of a shoulder, is fine on most things for most everyday carry style tasks. I like the forward finger choil is another thing that I like. It gives you a really good degree of control when you're doing that. Detail work is just a term. Blade HQ did a really good video a while back on, just recently, on all the stuff that knife guys say, and detail work. Holy shit, do we say that a lot. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of a thing. So
good for when you are doing things where you want your index finger to be as close to the material as possible, just for, just to feel your way through a cut or something. Whatever. Good finger choil for that, and better finger choil on this one than on the crux, I do believe. So that is cool as well. Overall, it's just a really well put together knife too. There is no fit and finish errors whatsoever. The knife is centered. The flipping action is good. Nothing wrong with any of that at all. In terms of how it is constructed, how it functions, well, let's segue into that, I guess. So, something you probably need to know is that it has the detent thing that, say, the ZT-0450 has, where, because it's a small knife, things can get a little bit cramped, and while you're flipping it, you can accidentally have, you'd be thinking, why isn't it flipping? It's stuck. And it's because your middle finger has gone there onto that onto that lock face, which has the detent ball in it, and pushes the detent ball just a little bit too hard into its spot. And it takes a fair bit of oomph to overpower that. You can, but enough oomph that you start to feel it on the end of your finger. So just something to be aware of. You're just gonna have to grip it like this to flip it open. And when you do that, it's absolutely no worries. I just noticed on slightly bigger knives, like the crux for example, that this doesn't happen. So even if you have your finger there, you can crack it open, no worries at all. I think it is because your finger sits right up on the actual pivot, and yeah, so when you do it like that with a bigger knife, even that slows it down, but because the knife has a longer handle, it's just not how your hand sits. The leverage isn't so intense that you can't really easily just overpower that detent. Whereas on this one, because everything's a bit closer together, it's just by the by of having a smaller EDC titanium frame lock flipper. So there you go, something you should know. One thing I don't particularly like about the knife is the handle ergonomics. When companies do things like this, they are sort of, they're taking a bit of a gamble. Gambling that, people whose hands fit it perfectly will be like, oh, that's lovely, fits perfectly, it's good. My finger's just a little bit too fat to sit in between all these ridges, so instead they sit on the ridges, which isn't as nice. When I review a knife, I do a bunch of sort of rudimentary stuff with it. Stuff that, I'll cut 50 bits of rope with it. Even if I'm not doing a rope cut test, I'll cut 50 bits of rope, I'll cut up some fruit, I'll cut up some cardboard. It's just to measure, you get a measure of everything. And when you do the rope cut, it really gives you a measure of the ergonomics. And this one is less comfortable than some others when you do that. It's just, I don't think it's just being a small knife. Everything's a bit more cramped up. The pocket clip the screw part here sits awkwardly in my hand, and my fingers don't quite sit flush along there. So whether you can do anything about this making a smaller EDC knife, I don't know. Then again, smaller EDC knives aren't meant for cutting things for perhaps long, drawn out periods of time. So either way, it's probably not the end of the world for this design, but I still would have preferred just a bit of simplicity here, maybe not worrying so much about hooking back onto, locking your hand in, because really, unless your hand is only that wide, which is anyone's hand only that wide, or finger grip only that wide, you're only going to be locking in 3 fingers at the most, and with me really, 2.5 fingers, because my third finger sits right on the edge of that, and yeah, I just don't find that it matches my hand as well. So, one of those things. My hands are about an open L number 8 width across, I guess, maybe a little bit less. So if an open L number 8 is about that on the palm from say your fingers to your fingers, you might find this knife is a little bit small for you. Sorry, it's a really shit reference, but it's something anyway. And yeah, maybe my fingers are a bit on the chubbier side, maybe, I don't know. This one is because it's my rope testing hand, and it's just that finger is just slowly dying. Anyway, so yeah, just a bit of a risk maybe. Risk, reward, who knows. It's really good, I'm sure, if it actually fits your hand. One other thing is, I just find this area here just a little bit inclined to be pokey in your hand. So, the clip meeting with these surfaces here and this surfaces here, just again, ergonomic issue. When I hold the knife like this, back in this grip, that's quite uncomfortable in this area of my hand. So, is what it is, but it may not be the case for you. So again, kind of subjective criticism. With this knife, I would just suggest giving it a try. It's if you can loan one or borrow one from someone first, see if it fits your hand, and then definitely pull the trigger, because I think in the long term it's well built, the materials are well done, it's well made, so it's going to do anything you need it to. But just as a user, if you do have hands my size, there's probably something better that you can get. Maybe even just the Ferrum Forge Crux. Alright guys, I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye now.